Hello, Bill McCartney, welcoming you once again to Rottnest Island, where the conditions are absolutely perfect for race 3 of the Prudential Superannuation Challenge for 18-foot skiffs. With me again is Warwick Rooklin. The better the conditions, the faster Xerox goes.
Yeah, certainly his speed has been awesome all year, but I think we should say that his crew work and the team effort on board Xerox has just been superb, and I think probably the best combination on the water. So it's not just boat speed, it's a full team effort from Phil Barnett and the boys.
And indeed, the skiffs now positioning themselves for the start of race 3. And at the start, we see that Xerox is positioned right up ahead of Prudential. Prudential must put on a big race this time round or it's all over. The gun goes and Prudential is caught slightly short at this end of the line. Xerox right next to them has started well. Bank of New Zealand up above them has started well also. Prima Drinks in good shape. Skilled Engineering and Elabache, a good even start all round. Now heading up, tacking up into the breeze, sailing as close as possible to directly into the wind, making their way now up towards the top mark, and immediately Prudential tacks away and Xerox follows. So Xerox, I expect, will be sitting on them all day long.
Yes, Phil Barnett's not going to let Brown go anywhere that he's not going, and the reason for that is that he doesn't want to let Prudential and the crew on board that boat get into another sort of wind pattern that they're not in at the same time. And the course today goes from the start-finish line up to the top mark off the beach, out to the wing mark, zigzag up to the start-finish line, and they will do that twice.
On board today with Prima Drinks. And they too have chosen to head out to the right-hand side of the course, same direction that Prudential and Xerox have taken. And a good tack by Prima, a good performance, Warwick.
Yeah, much better. There they are in the top left of the screen, and they are in there at the starting line and a lot more aggressive. The boat is a little bit underpowered at this stage. In other words, they don't have enough sail for the condition. The breeze has lightened off slightly. And the rig selection today, we've got Xerox and Prudential electing to go for their biggest rig as Xerox slams a tack on top of Prudential to try and cover them. And talking about rigs again, Prudential and Xerox with their #1 rigs, and the rest of the fleet electing to go for their #2 intermediate rigs. But the Bank of New Zealand looking very good in the top right-hand part of the screen.
They've come through beautifully, obviously picked up a change in direction in the breeze, and they've come through to lead this race. Indeed, it appears that either Skilled Engineering or Elabache is second at this stage. Skilled crossing in behind Bank of New Zealand. Elabache crossing ahead. Now, Elabache chose to tack. Why did they do that? That looked to me like they'd cross and lead. No, they were never going to cross that, Bill, and they had to tack because Bank of New Zealand had right-of-way there, much like the rules of the road. One boat has right-of-way and the other one has to give way, and in that situation Elabache had to give way. And I think Elabache is starting to slip out in the front of the Bank of New Zealand and lead. Yes, they are. Their lead and Skilled slip up into second position. If they do a good tack, they might get around the top mark in second. Yeah, they get round there. So that's good work from Andrew Devola. Elabache, an infringement. The judges were there. They must have seen an infringement that we missed, and Elabache is having to turn around. It appears the judges decided that Elabache did not give way to Skilled Engineering when they had to. Skilled Engineering had right of way. Elabache did not give way. The judges imposed a penalty of 1 360-degree turn. They've gone from first to fifth.
Yes, they could not afford that right there because the fleet is very close together, and if it had been later in the race, it mightn't have been so bad, but being such early on, it's been a disaster for them. And Andrew Devola takes up the lead in Skilled Engineering. Bank in New Zealand second, Xerox third, Tasmania Naturally Different, and Rob Brown on Prudential is absolutely buried in fifth position with Elabache and Tip Top White High Five applying pressure to him. So this is not good news early on.
Skiffs now making their way down from the top mark to the wing mark under full pressure, going full steam ahead. Prima Drinks currently in 8th position, but still very much in contention, and just at the moment David Lamond has Prima Drinks in lots of pressure, making up territory on Elabache. A very, very tight race indeed. And at this stage, it's very interesting to see that Andrew Devola has been able to take Skilled Engineering out ahead, as it appears to us from here at this time.
Yes, and the racing is that close that it's going to come down to crew work. The guys that can handle their boat the best will come out on top in this encounter. And as they approach the wing mark for the first time, they will have to change direction when they get there As Skilled Engineering does, they elect to jibe early, in other words before the others. Banking New Zealand now changes direction. A good jibe on both of those boats. Xerox is electing to go a bit further out, on board with Prima. Through the jibe. Putting the spinnaker onto the new side. Forward hand hooks up on the trapeze and jumps straight up in the wing. That was an excellent jibe on board Prima. Very good work indeed.
Indeed, Warwick, they've moved up 3 positions right there, and the race is still wide open. We are about 1/3 of the way through the 3rd heat of the Prudential Superannuation Challenge at Rottnest Island. And what a fabulous sight it's making. Adrian Carlin on board Ella Bachet trying to break free of this group on her right, tip-top wide high five, spinnaker almost smothering them. Trying to generate all possible boat speed. Neil McDonald in the bow working that spinnaker, trying to generate a bit more pace, but at this stage Prima Drink's right up there and having their performance of the whole regatta.
Yes, David Lamont has really impressed me in this race. He was a lot more aggressive at the start. His downwind tactics have been superb, and the crew work has been very good indeed, so that's very encouraging to see David up there.
Superb racing, getting down towards the bottom end of the course for the first time. Up ahead, Skilled Engineering is first. In this bunch, Prudential is 5th, Prima Drink 6th. Changing directions now in 7th position, Ella Bachet.
Dave Gibson, the sheet hand on board Xerox there, cleaning up the ropes, making sure there's no knots in any of the lines, so when they get down to the bottom end of the course for the first time and they drop their spinnaker, there are no hiccups.
Okay, up ahead, Skilled Engineering getting ready to drop the chute, and round that mark in first position, Andrew DeVola sailing superbly and has got a very good lead here, very close. Oh, hello, Skilled Engineering on the right's got a problem.
It's all
Looks
over,
like the boom's stuck. Oh, and over she goes, and by goodness me, she almost went over backwards.
Yeah, well, I think he invented a new way of capsizing, and we just talked about crew work, and that's the difference between these midfielders and the front-running bunch. The front runners don't make mistakes like that, and the midfield guys, they have the speed sometimes, but then just throw it away, as Andrew DeVola did right there.
Well, what occurred was that as they went through the jibe, they were changing directions, and the boom, which is the piece of metal down at the bottom end of the big sail that holds it together, got caught up in some wires. That meant that it didn't go across, the wind grabbed it, they didn't have the correct angle to the wind, and it just knocked them flat. So what a disaster for Andrew DeVola. He has just been improving all the time along with his crew, Jeremy Hampshire and Phil Reid, but that is a disaster for them. But as usual, these guys just looking so calm and in control, and now I think probably in the lead in this race.
Well, as they tacked there was a good indication of how calm Phil Barnett is, because he turned the boat around, and as he was hooking up on trapeze, he had time to look up underneath the boom to check out the opposition. And as he moves out to the left-hand side of the course, Prudential is in the far right-hand side of the screen, down to leeward, the Bank of New Zealand in between the two.
Great race developing here between Scott Ramsden and Phil Barnett. Bank of New Zealand looking to me as though they may well be right with Xerox there, maybe even ahead of them. Tasmania, naturally different. Andrew Dale putting on another good performance in what is a pretty old boat, and he never stops trying. But Phil Barnett in Xerox once again in a dominant position, I think probably narrowly a leader.
You can see the calmness that has come over Phil as Bank of New Zealand tacks. Yes, Phil Barnett has certainly become a cool customer this season, and the more he wins, the calmer he gets. And it's certainly good to see him mature and come into the top champion that he rightfully is. And in fact, he's a 4th generation 18-foot skiff champion, so it's certainly in the blood of the Barnetts.
And I saw Prudential get crossed by Tasmania, naturally different, so Prudential's still back there in 5th position. This is not where she can afford to be, I'm afraid. It's looking as though it's all going out the back door for Rob Brown and the boys on board Prudential. They're really struggling in this race, whereas Xerox once again has the boat speed, and even Andrew Dale on Tasmania, naturally different at this stage, ahead of the championship crew on board Prudential.
Yes, it's been strange. Rob Brown just hasn't even looked like he was going to take a race so far this series, and for a guy that had the whole championship riding on this last event, he doesn't seem to have been in a really aggressive mood, Bill.
No, he's usually it's at the starts where he does so well, and this time it hasn't been quite that way. But look at Andrew Dale in Tasmania, naturally different now. He stepped up into 3rd position. Look at this. And he's crossed just behind Bank of New Zealand. That's only 10 seconds in it, so he's picked up about 15 seconds.
And I think the reason that we're seeing some of these older boats being a lot more competitive this weekend is that the designs of about 2 years ago were a lot fuller than the modern boats, and also the rigs were a little bit taller, and I'm sure that these designs are suiting the flatter conditions off Rottnest Island this weekend.
On board, Prima Drinks coming up towards the midpoint of the race. David Lamond calling his crew for attack.
Ready, let's go.
And they are still in a good position in this race, but need to make sure they maintain that crew work. And that tack wasn't quite what we were looking for.
No, but it's bottom end as Bank of New Zealand changes direction. This is bottom end of the rig range, and certainly that particular design of Prima has got very little room inside of the boat and makes it very difficult to change direction.
Now, come on, Warwick, you're the one who's been bucketing the Prima guys all the way along the line. They just did a lousy tack, and now you're being nice to them. We just saw what a real tack's all about on board Bank of New Zealand, and Bank of New Zealand doing very well here too. Scott Ramsden has, to me, sailed into a nice shift in the breeze, got full pressure. He's got Cameron McDonald and Charlie Diekman fully extended on the wings. And here they are coming up in blue, up towards the start-finish line to complete one lap. They're coming in on a starboard tack. They have right of way. Xerox coming in on a port tack. We'll see how they cross when they get up to this halfway point, and here they are. Race closing up, skiffs all over the place, and Bank of New Zealand has sailed up into the lead. Sensational performance from young Scott Ramsden.
And that's exactly what I was talking about with hull design, because the Bank of New Zealand is a full hull with modern rig design, and the Xerox is a smaller hull, so the Bank doing very well. And as far as your reference go to me about being nice to the Prima, I'm neither nice nor hard on these guys. I just call it how it is, Bill.
Well, that's very nice to know, Warwick. I'll tell all the boys about it when we get back on shore. Very nice tack from Scott Ramsden and the boys on board Bank of New Zealand. They were leading when they last crossed Xerox, now coming up to cross again. At this stage, Bank of New Zealand on a port tack with the wind coming over her left-hand side, which means that Xerox has right of way, but I think Bank of New Zealand, Bank of New Zealand is not going to try and cross. She tacks instead, she tacks away and gives away. Now, why did she do that?
Well, if he crossed him, he would have perhaps had to go too far to the right. He wants to get to the favoured side of the course, which appears to be the left at the moment. They're all sort of heading for the left-hand side, and he also may have thought that he mightn't have made it across Xerox, because we've got to remember that Xerox has right of way.
Well, I reckon he was going to make it easy, and now he's given Xerox control. Xerox is in the controlling position. She can drive Bank of New Zealand as far across the course as she likes before she tacks to make the ley line. I think Scotty made a mess of it.
Mate, did Ian Murray realise you were so knowledgeable on tactics? Perhaps you could have taken his position on the Spirit.
Well, when you're learning from a bloke like Ian, you really know what you're talking about, don't you? Getting up towards the top end now. Xerox does exactly as I said they would. They've controlled the race. They've pushed Bank of New Zealand right out to the left-hand side of the course, chosen their moment to tack. Now they've changed directions. They've got the wind coming over the left-hand side, and they will lead round the top mark.
Yes, and very tight battle, and someone is starting to appear there, but I think they may have tacked a little bit early, and that's Prudential. As Xerox leads, Bank of New Zealand second, and Rob Brown got up there, but I think he made a bit of a mistake by tacking probably about 20 yards too early, and he's going to really struggle to get around the top mark and let these two slip away again.
The crucial spinnaker set. Oh, struggling on board the Bank. Oh, and Scott Ramsden not happy.
Well, he's got reason not to be happy, because that was pretty ordinary. They got that spinnaker up the mast, and all the guys jumped out the end of the wing. He had to push the boat up violently to support their weight, and the spinnaker wasn't pulled on yet. Xerox did a smoother rounding and got the breeze, and it's just extended their lead by another 40 yards.
Now racing between the top mark and the wing mark. And there in the background, Skilled Engineering now 8th, Prima Drinks in 7th. Of course, Skilled was leading, but they butchered the thing with that capsize at the bottom mark. But once again, I don't think this has got anything to do with boat speed at all. The fact that Xerox is leading now is because they sailed better, they controlled it up that windward work, they got a better set, and now they're back in front. But I wouldn't write Scotty Ramsden off, he's a tough competitor.
Tasmania, naturally different, has slipped from 3rd to 5th, and looks like they're going further back because they've got a big twist in the spinnaker, which is called a wine glass.
This is Heat 3 of the Prudential Superannuation Challenge at Rottnest Island. We're getting down now towards the bottom end of the course for the final time. Xerox in the right leads narrowly from Bank of New Zealand. Tip Top White High Five. They had a bit of misfortune early in the race. They're back there in about 6th position at the moment and struggling to get up to them, and also struggling Rob Brown and the team on Prudential, currently 3rd but not making any impression at all.
Yes, I mean 3rd's not a bad position, but I mean the way Phil Barnett has been so consistent, it's just so hard to knock him off. I mean, in fact, he hasn't finished worse than 3rd all season. And coming into this regatta, he was had 6 wins apiece, but the minor placings told a different story. Rob Brown looks very concerned there. He's shaking his head, and it's almost resigning himself to the fact that Phil Barnett's going to take out this national circuit.
When he came down to the wing mark, he went beyond it to try and get a tighter angle. He jibed. They got the angle wrong, and now they're struggling to make the mark, and indeed they may even be struggling to hang on to 3rd position. He had to go for something. He decided to try for the tighter angle, and as Xerox rounds the marks, the crew on board Prudential still struggling to try and drive that boat up to the mark, and at the moment being carried away. There you see him over on the right being carried off the course. Xerox rounds in 1st position, but Bank of New Zealand's made up ground and now only about 10 seconds behind them and still in with a chance in this race as they round the bottom mark for the last time.
And moving up into 3rd position is Andrew Cudahy in Tip Top White High Five, displacing Rob Brown and pushing him back into 4th position. And Ella Bachet is only going to be yards behind by the time they get to the bottom mark. Ella Bachet coming in, leaving the drop a little bit too late, I believe. They've done this before and had to sail past the mark. Yep, there they go. They're sailing past the mark again and just losing vital metres. Trying to round up there, well, that was just absolutely silly.
In real strife, this is a capsize. Over they go. Craig Ramsden trying to pull it back and manages to do so.
I don't know what Adrian was thinking there, because you just cannot turn these boats into the wind when the spinnaker is still 3/4 of the way up the mast, and she's just got her whole crew in a lot of strife right there and falls off the back of the boat. Things going from bad to worse. Craig Ramsden grabs the tiller, takes over from her for a second while she gets back on board, and that leaves the crew to have to sort out a terrible mess.
Coming down now in 7th and 8th positions, Skilled Engineering and Prima Drinks. And Prima Drinks fallen off the pace a little after a very good performance early in this race. But Xerox now coming up on port tack to cross with Bank of New Zealand. And this is very interesting. This looks very close. Bank of New Zealand went out to the right earlier than Xerox. And as they cross here, we're going to see exactly who leads this race.
Yeah, Scott Ramsden, I think. Yes, he does. Scott Ramsden takes the lead, and he went out to the left-hand side of the course, picked up a better breeze than Phil Barnett and Xerox, and has slipped back into the lead, so that's great news. Scotty getting right in there and pulling all the right moves as he tacks to make a cover and go the right direction as Phil Barnett now.
When the crew on board Bank of New Zealand are good, they're just great. When they're crook, they're really crook. I think we can probably say the same for the boys on board Prima as they round the bottom mark now to head up towards the finish line. They have one leg of the course to go, tacking up into the breeze. And here are the real movers in this race. This is Tip Top White High Five. Andrew Cuddy, Dave Clueworth and Michael Kennedy have moved right up into 3rd position and having another excellent race.
And Bank of New Zealand extends its lead by another metre over Xerox. It surprises me a little bit that Scotty Ramsden is going to sail out. No, he's turning now. He's turning the boat around. He's not going to let Xerox sail off to an opposite corner. So this is going to be a very close race indeed. Andrew Cudahy moving up also.
Tip Top White High Five, very close 3rd now. Race closing up, but absolutely nothing between Bank of New Zealand and Xerox in the lead. And a great performance from Tip Top White High Five. They have moved right up into 3rd position, challenging, and here we are up towards the finish line now. Xerox changes directions for the last time to try and make the finish line. Bank of New Zealand coming up on starboard tack, has right of way, and maybe can make the line from there. If she can make the line from there, she's definitely going to win this race.
Yes, Scotty should be tacking now. He's leaving it a bit late. Tacks now. He could have tacked a little bit early. He could have tacked a bit of early. He might have thrown it away there. Xerox has accelerated. The Bank of New Zealand a bit slow. No, they're pulling the boat away. They've got a bit more speed. Yes, I think the Bank took that by the narrowest of margins.
Bank of New Zealand, the winner of race 3 of the Prudential Superannuation Challenge. Tremendous effort from them. And what a beauty from Tip Top White High Five. Andrew Cuddy again showing his class. A lousy result for Prudential, reflected in the progress points in the event here on Rottnest Island. Xerox very much in charge, and Bank of New Zealand second. Scott Ramsden and the crew on Bank of New Zealand held their nerve in the tightest possible of circumstances. One of the most exciting races we've had on the circuit all year. We expect more of the same when we return tomorrow with race 4.